what I learned is successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not. So I'm successful because I'm willing to do what you ain't willing to do. I'm willing to get up early. I'm willing to stay late. I'm willing to do that over again. And when I don't feel like doing it, I get up and I do it again. And that difference between me and you. I'm gonna keep going when I don't feel like going. You wanna go as long as it's comfortable and convenient. But then you wonder why you ain't got what I got. You ain't going where I'm going.
Welcome to Closing the Gap Podcast, The Truth About Wealth. I am your host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, Pastor Eddie Richardson of New Grace Covenant Church, and I'm here with my good friend and the owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, the progenitor of this podcast, Closing the Gap Podcast, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. How you doing today, sir?
They always blessed and highly favored.
Amen. I love to hear that every time because you are tuned in to another righteous and holy episode, and today we're going to talk about having a good cornerstone. What is a cornerstone? Well, cornerstone is what is laid when you're getting ready to build. And if you are building a good lifestyle, you need to be focused on Jesus Christ as the chief cornerstone for your life. And then after you focus on Jesus as the chief cornerstone, Jesus will in turn be able to provide for you the necessary finances that you need to build the lifestyle that God desires for you to have. Many times we don't have what we need because we are trying to build something, and don't have a blueprint, don't have a first stone that we need to place down. So if you don't put that first stone down, then you don't have direction in where you're building, right? And that's the problem with life in general. We are aimless in the things that we're doing because we have not figured out where's the east, where's the west, where's the north, where's the south, and which direction we need to start in with our lives. And so we want today to try to give you an aim. We want to give you the cornerstones to faith. We want to give you the cornerstones to finances to help you build and move yourself forward in the manner in which God desires for you to live. Because all of us desire to have success, and some of us have some success, and many of you have your cornerstone laid down and you've been building on it, and we applaud each of you that have been doing that. But then there are some of us that have not done those things that are necessary to build, and then we wonder why the money that we have or have had in the past, we have not been able to manage it well, because I would dare say that we have put it into some things and on top of some things that do not survive the test of time. There are many different vehicles and places that you can put your finances and that you can put your faith. But if you don't put your faith in Jesus Christ first and foremost, you will be lost. And if you put your money in the wrong hands, all that you have will be lost.
Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to your own understanding.
Yes, sir.
So we gotta, first and foremost, like you said, you gotta make sure you put your money in somebody's hands and put it in the right hands. Don't trust yourself too much.
Yeah.
Get some accountability, and make sure that you're aligned. Of course, that's been our thing for the years, accountability and alignment, making sure we're in line with what God wants us to do, and making sure that we're, moving in the direction that, we can see, some success and some benefits. But we have to, take the first step of not just thinking that we are the end all be all and we are know it all. Because all of us think we're pretty bright individuals, and we can tend to lean into our own understanding a little too much sometimes. And that's where, we've always, spoken about it here on, this podcast, Close the Gap, about, seeking that professional help in all areas of life. I seek help spiritually. I seek help when it comes to, tax questions. I seek help when it comes to, legal questions. And, we always tell people, seek us out if you need some kind of financial help. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
We're here to help, guide and direct and, put people in better situations. And, we are also having access to opportunities that, most people just don't know exist. One statement always kind of comes back around that I hear in my day-to-day life is that we don't know what we don't know. On far too many occasions, I realized that we don't know enough.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know unless you talk to somebody who do know. So we got to start making sure that we speak with the people that have the answers to the questions that we have, and that can guide us and point us in the right direction. And you know, just kind of planning for the episode and thinking about being the thermostat and not the thermometer. We want to change the environment when we
Yeah.
walk into the room.
Yeah.
You want to be the kind of person that walks in and the mood changes in a positive way. The energy shifts, when you come into the room. You don't want to just be, the thermometer. That's just a gauge. Like I said, you want to be hot or cold. You don't want to be lukewarm.
Yeah.
Hot water can have benefits. Cold water has benefits. But lukewarm water ain't doing nothing for nobody. So you always want to have and be in a position where you can, help shift and change the culture of yourself and even your family. I mean, because at the end of the day, we know a righteous man leaves an inheritance to his children, and obviously that's the goal that that we want to have for not just for ourselves, but for the people that we come into contact with. Is it's one of the things that drives me, as a professional, is really teaching people and impacting people in a positive way, so they can be the change that they want to see. So understanding that that provision is not a command. It is a command. It's not a compliment. It's our responsibility to provide for our families. When we talk about, I was thinking about the 4 P's as I was taught them a long time ago. It said you're supposed to be as a man, you're supposed to provider, priest, prophet, and pastor over your home. And those are positions that, I think are, you know, first and foremost essential for making sure we're guiding people in the right direction. Because if we want to, see our kids be the best they can be, and we want to help, our spouses be the best they can be, then, we got to be making sure that we're providing and we're creating some provision, for them.
Yeah.
Want to understand that, the house must stand even when you can't. And that's what I tell, you tell my wife, and I tell people all the time. I said, my responsibility is far greater than what I think most people even realize. The goal is to, put my son in a position where they can take care of themselves and their families and people around them once I'm no longer here. Since why they say the house must stand even when you can't. So the house can't crumble if I'm not there.
Yeah.
But if I don't provide and I don't create provision, for my family along the way, then that's exactly what can happen if I'm not there. So we want to make sure that we're doing that, and want to make sure that we're leading and guiding, our families into the next, generation, into the future. And we see how, things have shifted and how the world continues to change and adjust around us in a rapid pace. I've been blessed to be on this earth for 44 years, and I feel like, things have changed quite a bit in those 44 years. My sons look at me and they said, "Dad, did y'all have phones when you were young?" I said, "Yeah, we did have phones, but the phones hung on the wall." They're like, "They hung on the wall?" I said, "Well, you know how they, when you go to Brother house, you still see the phone that hung on the wall. I said, they still got the cord attached to us." Yeah, that's what we had. So we didn't, we would carry cell phones in high school.
Yeah.
We didn't. They said, "You didn't have iPads?" I said, "No, sir, we didn't. We didn't have iPads." And you think about how long the technology that we use on a day-to-day basis now has really been around. We didn't have it. We were, utilizing different means and different methods. We had this thing called walking. We had 2 feet we had to use. We had bicycles that got us from place to place. And, we didn't have I remember when Call ID came out. We have Call ID in the beginning. Now, who called them before they called. You can, we wasn't sending text messages. It was, there wasn't even no email. Really.
Right.
That came along, as we got older. So, you can see how quickly things have changed. And we can look at that and think about how things are going to change even more so over the next 20, 30, 40 years of living. And you have to prepare yourself for that change. And how do you prepare yourself is by your preparation. Is, what are you doing today? Is how are you equipping yourself? How are you educating yourself? What situation are you putting yourself, your children in, so you can learn and you can grow and you can develop. And those are things that I think we don't, pay enough attention to. We have to be more intentional about, guiding our kids. And, we always, people have this debate, I think a lot now. And, how much you should or shouldn't push your kids, and how much you telling your kid what to do, or just
Yeah.
allowing them to
Right.
have fun and do things that they enjoy. And one thing that I learned is your kids don't know what they enjoy until you put them in that environment and see.
Mhm.
If you don't put them in different positions, if you don't put them in different situations, circumstances, and I've learned that most occasions kids can really take more than you think they can take.
Mhm.
They can do more than you probably think they can do. Because in reality, we all can do what we believe we can do. So if you put them in some situations that may have seemed insurmountable, they may just surprise you. If you put a little bit more on their plate,
Mhm.
they might just come through,
Mhm.
or it might reveal to you where they may need to do a little bit of work. Because everyone has gifts and talents and strengths, but we all have to, I think, strengthen our weaknesses as well. It's just ironic that I remember being a young kid and sitting in the back at church, and I was a very shy individual. I just wanted to go to church. I want to sit next to my dad. I want to sit in the back. You don't say nothing to me. I ain't gonna say nothing to you. And we just want to leave. We just want to leave. Hey, hi and bye.
Mhm.
And my mom said, no, 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 no. I got something for you. Let me go put you in this youth department. Let me go put you on the usher board. Let me go put you in this choir. Let me go, let you join, into, the Sunday school activities, and you're gonna participate in Sunday school. You ain't gonna just go.
Mhm.
You're gonna be an active participant
Yeah.
in Sunday school. And, the more I got involved in those things, it brought out other elements of my personality, and it helped me develop other characteristics that have pushed me forward in life that have been very helpful.
Mhm.
Now, if it was up to me, I would just been sitting in the back of the church.
Mhm.
I just would have stayed to myself. 'Cause I just wanted to go and come, leave, and maybe go play a little basketball after that. But mom said, no, no, no. I need to teach you how to be a leader. I need to teach you to speak in front of people. You're gonna go in front of this church and you're gonna be the MC of the youth service. You're gonna go and you're gonna give the welcome and the occasion. You're gonna go and you're gonna get an Easter speech. And you're not gonna take that paper up there with you. You're gonna have to memorize it. And you're gonna
Mhm.
practice it the day before, standing in front of me. I know I ain't the only one. Y'all remember some of this too. But these are the things that helped us.
Yeah.
These are the things that, help propel us in ways, because at some particular point in time, whether you were going for an interview, you wanted a new job, or you was trying to prepare yourself for something that you really wanted to take a shot at, you had to speak in front of a crowd.
Mhm.
You had to speak in front of, someone, an individual of that had some type of value and importance about them, and you had to hold yourself and conduct yourself a certain way. You know, but you weren't prepared for that if you had not had those experiences early on.
Mhm.
So I'm thankful that, my mom pushed me into some uncomfortable situations to help cultivate and develop something in me that I didn't even know that was there. And I think that's where, we've maybe got off the wagon a little bit. In our community, we've, been so cognizant of letting our kids be comfortable
Mhm.
as opposed to disrupting their comfort.
Mhm.
And the only way to grow is to be uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Growth hurts.
Mhm.
I remember growing up, and you go to the weight room, and you're trying to get bigger, you're trying to get stronger, you're trying to get faster. When I was playing ball, and the muscles gonna get a little sore, but in order for them to grow, you got to work them. You got to tear them down so you can build them back up. And we have to look at how those lessons and the things that we went through and how they were beneficial for us. And if we're not giving our kids that same dose of medicine, you know, how are they going to fully develop into being who God has called them to be? We all talk about, us being the best that we can be. But at some point in time, and once you have kids, and the people who have children understand this, you get to the point in life where you realize it ain't about you no more.
Yeah.
Your life doesn't revolve around you. I own a company. I have, a wife, and I have a lot going on. But my schedule still revolves around my kids.
Mhm.
When they have games, when they have practice, when they have things they have to do, and I'm trying to be there. So they have workouts and they have training. So I'm still scheduling my day, looking around and see, okay, well, how do I make sure that they can attend and be where they need to be so they can become the best version of themselves? Was at the end of the day, that's why we're doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're doing this so we can help our kids become the best version of themselves. We're trying to be successful to put our kids and our families in the best situation. It's, if the wealth is just for you, then you in it for the wrong reason.
Mm.
It's all about who you can share it with. And the goal is, like I said, a righteous man leaves his heritage to his children's children. So the goal is to put our kids and our next generations in even better situations. So not so life can necessarily be easier for them. And I think that's where we get a little twisted sometimes. We get caught up in, I want my kids to struggle like me. Well, no, it's not that they are not going to struggle, because everybody's going to have challenges,
Yeah.
you know,
There you go.
but you don't want them to have the struggle.
Struggle. Mm-hmm.
Life is going to create its own set of challenges for everyone.
Right.
I don't care how much money you have, you're still going to have some challenges. You're going to have some things you have to overcome. You're going to have some things that you have to address within yourself and whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. What the financial resources do is allow you to be a little bit more optimistic and for you to chase the dreams that God has put inside of you. It allows you to take a step back and say, oh, I want to attack this and I want to do that. What is the best course of action for me to do that? You know, me being successful is I want to selfishly put my sons in a situation where they can be as selfish as possible, chasing after their own dreams. I'm a product of someone who was able to be somewhat selfish and being able to chase after my dream. So I want to make sure that I give that, you know, to the next generation, to our kids. And, you know, I just want the people on the sound of my voice to understand that, and understand that if you're doing it for you, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You have to be thinking about, you know, the future, the people that depend on you, the people you say you care about, because, you know, our impact is going to be here longer than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's the goal.
Yeah.
I always tell people my motto is I want to touch the lives of people I will never come into contact with. And how do I do that? It's through impact.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be through money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, money is a byproduct of the impact.
Yeah.
You know, but the most important thing is to make a positive impact on as many people as possible, because then I'm never forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm able to affect change in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to do, because we have to point our kids in the right direction to be more successful than they realize that they can be. Because we can see things in our kids that they can't see in themselves, because
Right.
we've been there.
Right.
We can see their gifts and their talents, and we can see things in areas they may be weak in, and areas they may be strong in, and we can push them in those directions to enhance those strengths and also work on those weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to push them.
Right.
You know, we can't be afraid to push them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like you said before, there's some pain sometimes in the pushing.
Yeah.
You know, birth is a beautiful thing,
Mm-hmm.
but women can tell you it's a pain
Pain in that.
in that pushing. But what it produces is a thing called life. It's the most valuable thing that any of us have.
Yeah.
Is life.
Yeah.
But the pain that comes with it, they say, is the closest thing to death
Mm-hmm.
that anyone could ever feel.
Mm.
So it's amazing of what comes out of pain. From the pushing.
Mm.
So we have to understand that and have to, you know, not remove some of the pain from the pushing for our kids. They need to be pushed into uncomfortable situations. My mama pushed me into a bunch of uncomfortable situations
Yeah.
that I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
But what it developed, what it cultivated, what it produced is the reason why I can sit here today.
Yeah.
On this podcast, on this radio show,
Mm-hmm.
on this YouTube channel, being a conduit of change.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just inherited your parents sick the temperature for you to go out and be the thermometer in the world, right? I mean, be the thermostat in the world, not just the thermometer. That you set the temperature in the places that you go because they invested certain things in you, and that's a good foundational piece that we are talking about today. Is what are we investing in ourselves? What has been invested in us that we are in turn investing in the generations to come behind us? Are we providing for them the faith that we've had growing up in church? And I'm talking to those that are around my age, you know what I'm saying, in the 60s, 50s, 40-year-olds, right? Are you investing in your children with God like you need to, giving them that foundation in order that you can give them the foundation financially? And so we're going to go to the break, and then we're going to come back and dive into that a little more, because I got a little I need to explain there, you know, and get my wheels are turning. So we're going to let the commercial go, and we're going to see you right back after this break. Welcome back to Closing Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. And today's show is entitled The Cornerstone. We are building on 3 cornerstones today. We're talking about being the thermostat and not the thermometer, having provision as a command and not a compliment, and then also that except the Lord build a house. Those that build it in vain. So all of these tie in together, and so we're going to kind of relate them together. And right now, I'm going to dive into this text of Psalm 127 that says, "Except the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh in vain." Diving into that, what we want to speak on there is the foundational piece of we are striving to build things in our own homes, in our own lives, but we are not building those things on a firm foundation. Um, the Bible says that Jesus is the chief cornerstone. We can find that in 1 Corinthians. We can find that in Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 16, that Jesus is the chief cornerstone. And if we're not building what we do in life, period, when it comes to our faith and our direction and our finances, we have to have something that is everlasting, right? And God is everlasting. God has been here since the beginning of time and time unknown. Jesus is the Son of God and the one that provides salvation for us all. And then all that we have, all the provision that we have received, it comes from the Father of lights, the one that owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He provides all of these things for us. So as we go out here and we work hard for these various things, and God allows us to be able to work and to be able to earn, we must ask ourselves, am I built on the foundation of Jesus Christ in what I'm doing? And oftentimes, some of us are, but there are some of us that aren't, right? Or let's go here. There are some of us that we are built on that foundation, but we're not building the kids on the foundation.
Yes.
So now, as you said, your mother invested in you. You just didn't inherit certain things from your parent. They also invested things into you, caused you to get up from just sitting down and relaxing in church to be out and have the ability to speak to other people, to make sure that you had certain tools that allowed you to become the great man that you are today, and to have the business that you have today, and to be the leader that you are today, was because they invested into you. And now in turn, we have to invest those things into our kids as well. Sunday school still has great value, right? Because Sunday school provides us the opportunity to sit in the Word of God, read stories that are based on the scriptures, and then get an explanation for those scriptures. And if you have grown up in church, you can remember a lot of those stories, right? Everybody wants to get upset about saying that, Adam and Eve didn't eat an apple. And I understand it. But when we think about the interpretation, in order for a kid to understand it growing up, there's nothing wrong with telling them that it is an apple to get the understanding, to paint the picture for them to understand. That's setting a cornerstone foundation, that I'm giving you something to be able to visualize, that once you visualize it and then you are able to read the Bible on your own, now you can get down to whether or not it was what it was and what it wasn't, right? Not getting caught up in the semantics, but they ate fruit.
Yes.
An apple is a fruit.
Yes.
So if I say it's an apple, then just for the context of explaining to the child, then I let it be an apple. If I want to say that Jonah got swallowed by a whale instead of a great fish, just to give the visual for the kid to understand at this moment, then that's a foundational piece. That's a cornerstone piece of having, so that a child can understand. And that's what allowed us to get to where we are, is those stories, those trainings in the Word of God. is still paying dividends, right, today. And that's the thing that we want everybody is to reap good dividends. When you make financial investments, you're looking for dividend. You're looking for a return on your investment, and you want the maximum return as possible. You don't care what the rate usually is when you talk to your financial advisor, like Hamilton Wealth Advisors. And usually put per year, they say it's about, on average, it's 7% or so, somewhere in that range. That's fine, but what you actually want is, you want it to be maximized. You want it to be able to be 100%, 200%, right, on the investment. Well, that's the same thing we need to do and expect from our kids. Is we need to invest in them more so that we can have a greater return on the investment. But we're not taking the time giving them the Jesus like we need to. And so, I want all of us to invest God into the kids, because when you invest God into the kids, then God in turn, which God is always going to take care of God's children, period. God takes care of all of us. It rains on the just and the unjust. But when we invest God into the children, that they get an understanding of who God is, now that removes fear from them, right? And that when fear is removed, now we have a new level of trust.
Yes.
Which is one of your favorite words, Wilbert, is about trust.
Yes.
In order to allow for somebody to allow you to have their manage their finances, they have to have a level of trust in you. And the place that the cornerstone of trust that we first get is from our parents.
Yes.
Because we're born into this world, and our parents are the ones that take us in, and they feed us and nurture us in order so that we can start walking and talking, and that we have our physical health. And then they also invest in us and nurture us so that we can have a spiritual health. And so then once our parents invest in us in that way, we trust them, right? And then now, after we trust our parents, who we see all the time, the next level of trust needs to be an understanding of knowing who God is.
Yes.
To be able to trust the one that you don't see. To be able to trust who has caused the sun to shine, who has set the moon in its place, who has placed each star in its place. You need an understanding of what it is that you see in the cosmos, in the world, right? Universally, I need an understanding of that. And so now when you tell me that there is a God that orders and orchestrates everything that works, now I have the cornerstone of trust in my parent who I see and has raised me. Now I begin to build trust in the one that I don't see, in God. And then now I'm able to go and trust people that I don't know. Because when I trust my known parents and trust in the unknown God, now I can trust in unknown people. Why? Because now I have discernment. And my discernment has come from my understanding of what is going on in the cosmos, in the world, and getting a framework from the Bible that tells me who God is. So then once I have that trust, now I have trust in my parents, trust in God. Now I can trust Hamilton Wealth with my finances. Now I can trust Pastor Eddie Richardson to pastor me at New Grace Covenant Church. Now I can trust Daz to shoot all my content for any type of event, pictures or whatever it is. So make sure you all seek out Create Live for any type of pictures, videography, all of the other things. I don't even know what all Daz does. He does a whole lot. The repertoire is, and it's the CV is long. So we have people that you can trust. And when you build that trust, then what you understand is that faith and finance both operate on that fundamental mechanism of trust. And when you put your money in the bank, you're trusting the bank, and you don't even know these people, right? But you don't put your money in the bank unless you believe that it'll be there tomorrow. And so when we believe it's going to be there tomorrow, that's the foundation that's underneath us putting our money in the bank. That's the foundation underneath allowing Hamilton Wealth Advisors to manage our finances. And then when we blend that all together, it creates an unbreakable cornerstone because I trust that it's going to happen. And trust is a principle that stabilizes your mind. Now I don't have anxiety about my money because I know that everybody that I'm dealing with, they have sound principles and they give me security in my life. And so I want everybody to make sure that you take the time to build yourself up, build your children up. And even if you don't have children, children that you see and that you are around, lift them up in prayer. Because prayer covers a multitude of sins. And I believe, Will, with that, if we pray more, we'll have more.
So you have not because you ask not.
You have not because you ask not. And if we prayed for more people would be covered and be doing better, right? Because I don't have to know somebody in order to pray for them. Absolutely. We don't have to know the children that are running around doing wrong in order to pray for them, right? We can still lift them up in prayer just off sight. We can say, God, I saw a child. I don't even know that child's name, but you know who I saw and who I'm talking about in my mind. But God, I want you to cover them. I want you to lead that child to be able to have success, to be able to fulfill your will, to be able to hear your voice. And so these are foundational principles, Will, with that I believe will help us be able to build the generational wealth. These are the things that will help us to be able to set the temperature in the world, because the world is getting colder and colder. It's getting more evil. Yeah, people are going, as we say, to the wayside. Right now, I get a good song in my head. Every now and then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think about the first church I pastored, down at Martin Mission CME Church down in the Akron, Alabama area. Actually, I think it's called Stewart, is that small area right there. And we used to sing that song about so many people falling to the wayside, and just reminding ourselves that we need to pray. Yes. Right. And that was one of the songs that we would sing. And then before we would preach, we would all at that church, they had a custom before I got there of coming around the altar and everybody grab hands and we would call out the things that we wanted to lift up in prayer. And then we would go into prayer all together, hand in hand. And I think that's a foundational principle that we need to have as well, because if I reach out and touch somebody and I hold their hand, I'm building a level of trust with them too, right? And I can remember, man, my mind is turning, Will, but hell, just hold on for a minute. I'm turning back over to you, but I'm going. But I'm thinking about even in the going in primitive Baptist churches and going to the primitive Baptist church. They would hold hands and sing the song, and then you would rotate and do a rotation in hands, and they just call that the winding chain. You know what I'm saying? That I got my hand in the Lord's hand, I got my hand in the winding chain, meaning that the Lord always pull me up and keep me and hold me. And these foundational things that I'm reminiscing about in the church also continue to help me like your mother did for you. Help let me know that things will be okay. Because while I watch the news and I may get upset and people may get disgruntled with some things that are going on in the world, when you know God and you've been giving some teachings on God, those teachings provide stability in your life. And the stability that God provides for you, then it fills your cup. And when your cup is filled, then you can pour out into somebody else's cup. Because true faith and financial health and wellness, does not come from empty cups.
Correct.
You can't make an investment if you don't have nothing inside of you. You can't make an investment if you're not standing on something that's solid. So when we have stability, that stability enables us to be providers for those that we are around and see.
Yeah, so you gotta pay God,
Mm-hmm.
pay your future,
Mm.
and then pay everybody else.
Yeah.
So give that 10% to the Lord,
Yeah.
pay 10% to your future,
Mm-hmm.
and let the other 80
Mm.
carry you home.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that is a rule that we can almost live by. And if we can adhere to that from a financial standpoint, that always puts us in a position where we have faith in future.
Mm.
Because when you give them to God, God is giving back to you.
Yeah.
So that's going to increase and help your faith.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't understand sometimes why, I have the faith that I have is because I give to God.
Yeah.
And I've seen God give back to me tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
So it only increases my faith and encourages me to make sure that I pay God.
Mm-hmm.
And by paying him and being able to help pay for my future,
Yeah.
and seeing the benefits that he's helped provide to everyone else connected to me,
Mm-hmm.
That only encourages me to want to do it more. And though that simple, pathway is a word to the wise. So if you pay 10% to your tithes and 10% into your own personal savings or retirement account, paying to your future,
Mm-hmm.
because like I always say, when you get on that plane, what they tell you to do, put your mask on first. You can't save nobody else until you save yourself. So you got to take care of you first and foremost. So taking care of you first and foremost is making sure you do it right by God, because he's going to make sure he supplies all your needs and open up the window and pour you out a blessing you ain't got room enough to receive. So now you can pay for your future. Now you can then help everybody else. So we just follow that simple principle. That's something that can just help us, give us a roadmap and a guide to get where we want to be. And that leads into, modeling that budget that we talk about so frequently, and how that's one of the things that most people run from is that budget. I ran from that budget myself. Sometimes I still want to run from that budget. But, it's nothing wrong with having a budget, because the budget is essential to having a foundation and making sure that cornerstone is in the right place. So when you have that budget, it gives you that foundation so you know what you can do, when you can do it, how you can do it. It helps you to prioritize. It helps you, let your kids know, hey, that you have some priorities. It's saying, look, I'm not going to go out and go spend all of your school money on shoes for me. I'm going to make sure I save so I can go out and make sure that you have the books and the supplies that you need to have for school. So we're going to have some priorities. So let your kids know that we need to have some priorities. If I got my priorities right to take care of you, I'm going to expect you to have your priorities right when you get to school. So I got to set the tone now. So I can't expect you to have your priorities right in school. When you watching me not have my priorities right and I'm out of school. So if they see me not paying the light bill, the water bill, cable bill, internet, they see me not doing those things and not prioritizing it, and they see me going shopping, buying shoes and clothes and jewelry and all this other stuff, but I'm not prioritizing the life essentials that they need to have the comforts and to go out and be the best version of themselves, it's going to be pretty hard for them to go out and prioritize what's important. Because if they get to school and they're hungry because I didn't feed them and I fed myself. If they get to school and homework ain't done because they didn't have no internet and they didn't have the right supplies that they needed to complete the task at hand, because I spent the money on going out and having a good time, then my priorities not being in check automatically puts them in a disadvantage where now it looks as if their priorities is not right, but it's really mine the whole time. And they are a reflection of us, and we are a reflection of them. Make sure that your reflection looks good in the mirror. See you back after this break.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to Closing Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. And we are talking today about the cornerstone. We laid out a couple of things already. We're about be the thermostat, not the thermometer, meaning that we want everybody to uh, set the temperature and wherever you are, and then also being allowing to invest in your kids. They're going to inherit some things from them, as you just closed out with as well. They are images of us by what we they inherit and what we invest in them, but also understanding that it's important to provide. It's a command. You know, God orders us to provide for Him, because God provides for us.
Yes.
You know, and it's not just compliment. It's not just, you know, saying thank you or just telling you I want you to have this. Like, no, this is our responsibility. These are cornerstones to family, to wealth building, wealth management, faith building, and understanding that who has built the house.
Yes.
When we understand that God is the one that has built the house, then we will then in turn around and give back to God. We'll pay God. Then we can pay our future, and then we can pay everybody else, as you stated. But in order to do that, you have to be the model of that budget, right? You have to display these things. It's not just about us talking about these things. It's about us actually performing these duties, right? And that's what we're talking about understanding that Jesus is the chief cornerstone, and we display these examples because Jesus is the display of the examples. And I think that's important for all of us to remember, is that the reason that here at Closing the Gap we talk about Jesus Christ like we do is because Jesus is the model. Jesus is the cornerstone that we have built everything that we do with Wilbert and his business and his family. He's built it on the model of Jesus Christ and his example. What I do with my family, my businesses, and the church, it's all built on Jesus Christ. And so it's important that whatever you are striving to build, you need to build it on solid ground. Because if you try to build it on sinking sand, then you'll end up in quicksand, and you'll end up falling down, and what you have will disappear. That's the thing about building something on sand, is that it surely will fall. But another song I like, Wilbur, is about building on the solid rock. You know, my hope is built on Jesus Christ and nothing less than Him. You know what I'm saying? Because all other ground is sinking sand. There's another song that says, "My anchor holds and grips the solid rock," and that solid rock is Jesus. So we want everybody to build on these things, and in building that, you realize that uh, Jesus is the cornerstone, and that's the first pour, and the cornerstone lasts, and then everything else is built on top of that. And we stack brick by brick by brick after that, meaning that I am content with Jesus being the cornerstone, but I'm not going to be complacent and just stay on that one brick, because that one brick does not build the whole house.
Yes.
It is the starting point. It is the foundational piece, but it is laid as the foundation. The cornerstone is laid in order to give us the direction, to allow us to build. And whatever it is God's will to build for you, you can build one of the greatest structures ever in your faith, the greatest structure in your finances, as long as you have the right cornerstone. You can build it as big as you want, as small as you want, whatever your plan desires to be, it can be built. And in order to do so, I ask you that you will contact Hamilton Wealth Advisors to build your financial plan, to help you to be able to manage your finances and the resources that God has given to you. But understand that as you build it up, Wilbert, it's not just about building, right? But it's about handing it off.
Yes.
We were talking in our pre-show time about, you know, houses and investments, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the house that you have now is not about you.
Correct.
It's about the person that's coming behind you,
Yes.
right? The house, you take care of the house for your children, if they are going to keep it, but then even if they're not going to keep it, if you're going to sell your home, you're managing it for the next person, for the next generation, because there's a younger Wilbert Hamilton and wife and kids that are going to be in need of a home. And so we're building it for them. We're building it for our next generation. So we want to be able to build, be content in what we build, but not complacent, so that we can hand it off to somebody else.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things is why it's so important, to train up in the child in the way that he should go. So when he's old, he won't depart from it, because when you trying to hand them wealth,
Mm-hmm.
you got to hand them some habits and some values as well. What good is the wealth if they don't have the habits and the values to manage the wealth? Because then they're going to squander it. So I see people, now starting to take the steps of saying, hey, I want to leave something for my kids, but I don't want to put too much on them. I don't want to tell my kids what to do. I want them to be free thinkers. And I'm like, well, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and I understand what you mean. But at the same time, it is your responsibility as a parent to guide your child, to direct your child. And in some situations, tell your child what they are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was a child, I thought as a child.
Mm-hmm.
But when I became a man, I put away
Childish
things. We have to understand that. We have to remember that. Your kids don't know what's best.
Mm.
They know what they like,
Mm.
but they don't even know what they're good at.
Mm.
And if you're trying to make them great at managing something that they don't even understand that they're going to receive, then sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable.
Mm.
Sometimes it's going to take you, taking a step back and not operating from an emotional position, operating from a standpoint of, I have to prepare you for some things that are yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be some responsibilities you're going to have and some tough decisions that you're going to have to make. And you're going to have to make those decisions from a intelligent position, not an emotional place. Because one thing that we do know and we do understand is that money changes things and also changes people's actions. And if you're not prepared emotionally and mentally
Mm-hmm.
to handle how some people may take some of the decisions that you make because you were left in a position where you're fortunate and you are blessed financially, then that can lead to your own destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're living to please people, and you're not here to please people. You're here to be able to help people, of course.
Yes.
You want to be able to pour into people,
Yes.
but you're not here to please people. And see, I think sometimes as parents, and I can throw myself in that group, as a parent, we can become people pleasers of our children. We can end up trying to please them. And in reality, you really cannot please a child, because a child is going to see something else that they want and they're going to want it, not understanding that they need to be completely content with what they have. See, being content is something that we had to learn. You have to learn to be content. And our parents taught us to be content probably a little bit sooner than our kids.
That's true.
Because, we had to, before we go in that store, don't look at nothing, don't touch nothing, don't ask for that. We had those conversations. You have to think about it. Do kids have those conversations being told to them anymore? They think when they walk in the store, everything is theirs. Yeah. Now, that's good in a way because it tells us we have improved in some ways. That tells us that maybe we have some resources that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
So we could do more. But at the same time, we had some discipline when we walked in that store. And we knew to follow certain directions. We know to adhere to the direction that was given to us. Whereas nowadays, there's no direction, so we see maybe more kids acting out. Not because they're necessarily bad kids, but because they haven't been trained or haven't been informed, haven't been prepared. So we got prepared before we walked in that store. Now, do they get prepared anymore? And I had to ask myself, if I ever told my kids, don't look at nothing, no ask for nothing, no test nothing before we walked into a store. And I had to think about it. I'm like, you know what? I think I've said it before, but not obviously as frequently as my mama told it to me. It's a little bit different. We knew, look, we go in the store, we are to stay behind the cart, don't put nothing in the cart, and don't ask for nothing to go in the cart. Mama was going to get what mama came to get, and then you were going to leave.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, of course, before I get my hands on the cart, my kids already put stuff in the cart because they have a expectation and they're blessed to be in a position where, dad cannot. When we had some hesitation about asking, could we? Because we knew that mom and dad valued that money a little bit more than I think we display. And because kids, I think, see us maybe spend a little bit more freely or frivolously than our parents did, they adopt some of those same habits. So we can't always blame the kids,
Yeah.
because we set the tone.
Yeah.
We prepare them for the future. So we have to help them understand that, it's about jobs and not just about gifts. You have to learn to work. Hey, I'm going to provide for you, yes, but you need to learn to earn and work for what you want as well.
Yeah.
See, I want what I give you to be a bonus. I want it to be in addition to, not just everything that you have because you're expecting a reward. See, we've, got to this world where, everybody get a participation trophy now.
Yeah.
Because you was on the team, you got a trophy. And I've never been a fan of, everybody getting a trophy that's on the team, because of course we didn't grow up that way.
Yeah.
If you were the best on the team, the best quarterback, or you scored the most touchdowns, or you had the leading tackler, or you was the offensive MVP or the defensive MVP, then you may have gotten an award. But you didn't just get a trophy because you were just on the team. So now, because kids are being celebrated for mediocrity, how can we expect them to be able to handle any type of success? And success can come in a lot of different ways. And we're talking about obviously building financially and leaving legacies and inheritances and leaving financial assets to the next generation, which is all things that, we should be doing.
Right.
But we also have to prepare them for the assets they're going to receive, so they can properly utilize those assets, so they don't mismanage those assets, so they don't use what we leave them and it hurts them more than it helps them. Because having access can also lead to major destruction. We knew that, my mom would tell me when I was young and I was out hanging out, when I was a teenager, she would always call me and it got to, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. She'd call me and say, "Hey, nothing out this late but the devil." And I knew that was my cue to what? Come on home. Ain't nothing else out but trouble. So let's make our way on home. And when you have resources, when you have money, that means you have access to now do things that you maybe couldn't do before. So if you're not trained and prepared on how to handle these resources, then it's not impossible that you squander them. And we see it happen all the time. People talk about how this athlete go broke, or how this athlete lose all this money. And they was a top NFL or NBA draft pick. Well, you handed someone something who had never had it before, and expected them to be able to make a grown-up decision when they were still yet a child. Well, that's really not a fair position to be in. It's just you weren't in that position to make that mistake. So it's easy to point the finger at, someone else. So we have to prepare our children. We have to tell them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. See, a lot of times our children, just like the world in social media, they only see our wins. We show them what we want them to see, but they don't see the losses. My kids get to see where dad is at right now. They didn't see where daddy started at, though. They didn't see dad when I was running around and I was, hustling and I'm working and I was chasing and doing everything I could. When I was really what we call on the grind. And now they get to see me where I wake up at home every day and I go to the office and I come back and I work on a set schedule that I control. And, where there was a time when I didn't control my schedule as much as I do now, where I was operating on somebody else's time a lot more than I do now. When I didn't have the house and the vehicles and the stuff that I have now.
You were running up and down that road every other
Yeah,
day. I mean,
they
coming
they
in
didn't
the
they didn't see that.
suited up.
They didn't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So they see the life that they enjoy now.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to share with them because, we see all the good, and then of course we all tend to minimize the bad.
Mm-hmm.
We all like to kind of minimize our struggles, and but those are the stories and the lessons that really taught you the most.
Yeah.
It's learning what you can stand in and stand through. That's where you developed your character. It's that's where you became who you really are. That's what made you who you are. It's not all the good times. The good times were the, residual effect of all the bad times that you endured. Your character of saying, okay, you know what? I'm gonna tell Lord, thank you anyhow. It didn't come from when things were good. It came from when things weren't going your way, but you still got up.
Yeah.
You still believe. You still press your way forward. You still said, I'm gonna trust the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto my own understanding.
Yeah.
I had to do that, and we have to do that. And I think if we let our kids know more of those stories sometimes, I understand you ain't gonna share everything,
Right.
but just share a little bit.
Yeah.
Just share a little bit.
Paint the picture for
Yeah,
them.
paint the picture for them. Let them know, that, what, it ain't where you start, it's where you finish. But we all have to start somewhere. And none of us usually start at the end. Now, we are all working and trying to build this financial future. So our end is their beginning. So their ending should be much greater than ours.
Yeah.
I told the Lord, I understand and I hope that I don't see what my kids see. I hope that they see far greater than what I'm able to achieve, because then that means we've done something right. If I can just be the initiator and the starter of being, this financial advisory firm, and of what turns into what one day is, the African American Merrill Lynch, the African American, Morgan Stanley, the African American Edward Jones, that has grown into something that I can see it, but I need to pray that God gives me the time
To build it up. Yeah.
to actually achieve it. But if I can just be the one who initiates it and starts it, I told the Lord a long time ago, I'm gonna be grateful and thankful if my kids can take it there, and my kids' kids can take it there. And I think sometimes we can all tend to be get a little bit selfish, because we all want it all. We all want it. I want to. Now, of course, I told the Lord, I want to see it through.
Yeah.
I want to make it happen. I want to see what it turns into, and when the vision has finally been revealed for the world to see, because I know what God has already shown me, and where things are going, and I trust and believe in Him. But a part of me actually, wants to see it too.
Yeah.
But I had to accept, and I told the Lord, I have accepted that if I don't see what it eventually turns into, I'm gonna be grateful and thankful that you gave me the opportunity to start it.
Yeah.
That I was able to be the initiator. I was the one to jump off the porch, so to speak, and have the vision, and have the drive, and have the ambition, and have the strength, and have the faith that I could pour into it, and hopefully pour that same faith and even more intellectual capacity, and even more opportunities, and even more financial resources into the business. Now they can take it to the next generation. I tell my friends all the time when I'm talking to people, say, well, ask me how I got started. And, I remember when I told my dad what I wanted to do for a living, after I said, you know what, I'm not going to teach and coach. I'm going to take this opportunity, and I'm going to try financial services out. He said a statement. He said, man, you going to give up for show money for I don't know money? And I thought about it. I was like, I didn't see it as I don't know money, because I feel like God had already shown me that this was going to be for show money. But in reality, that was the truth. I was giving up a salary that was going to be fixed income for